All right, let's go. It's go time. People are trickling in, but we're going to go ahead and get started. I see some familiar names out there. I see you, Bryce. I don't blame you for being here. It's going to be an awesome conversation. Good stuff. Oh, Stacy is here. Great. Great to see people. Pat Johnson. Awesome. Some people here, some familiar faces, which we love. So yeah, let's get started. Today, we are going to talk today with you from the Designated Motivator for Accounting Professionals, reassessing your success. And goodness gracious, if we're not there yet, eliminating data entry for exponential profitability gains. Why? We can make money by letting somebody else do the work for us. I'm all about that for sure. So as we get going here, I want to start with introducing to you Jason Richelson, amazing, awesome co-founder and CEO of Bookkeep. I met Jason at Scaling New Heights this past fall, and I never looked back. I said, oh my goodness, this is a solution that I've been looking for what seems like forever. And maybe I've just not been looking in the right place, but at least I was at Scaling New Heights in the search for better technology to help my clients. So Jason, I'm going to let you introduce yourself. Just read his bio. He's just extremely intelligent. As we were preparing for this webinar, I'm like, Jason, can we do this? And he's like, nerdify. Off he goes. And he's like in his little nerd world. But Jason, go ahead and tell people how awesome you are.
Thank you. Well, I do have a big history in software, accounting software. I was working at Price Waterhouse building software for portfolio management. I had a payments company back in 1999, which didn't go very well. It was interesting, but it crashed with all the rest. And then I worked on Wall Street as well, doing trading stocks, but mostly doing automated accounting for the trading desk because I wasn't a very good trader. I was better at keeping track of the numbers. And the other guys were much better at making money. So then I quit that work because you can't work on a trading desk and not be a trader, or you're treated as second-class citizens. So I left and I started a wine store first with my partner at the time, and then a grocery store, and then another wine store. And that business became big, and to the point where I wanted better point of sale software, and there was really none available. So we started ShopKeep, which was the first iPad point of sale. And that actually was recently acquired by a company in Canada called Lightspeed, public company. And in the last 5 years, I've been doing the accounting at my wine store that I still own. I just recently sold in New York. And that's what led into starting Bookkeep. And Bookkeep is started as a bookkeeping firm, and we still are. We have 50 clients and 3 full-time accountants. But we started building software to automate our work. And that is what has become our now Bookkeep platform, which is for automation of sales and payment reconciliation.
Yes.
So that's where we are now.
That's a heck of a history there in a very short period of time. But I will say that we did implement Lightspeed for a client beginning of 2021, which was exciting. And now I now know the man who invented that, which is even more exciting, right? So cool.
Well, they have a different Lightspeed's got a bunch of platforms, and actually we work with their new cloud-based platform at Lightspeed. But unfortunately, Lightspeed's taking ShopKeep and turning it off in favor of their own homegrown platform. But we at Bookkeep, we can handle Lightspeed actually. I believe it's up and running now.
Awesome. Okay, cool. Well, with that, we're going to move on and talk a little bit about our topic today because, and I'll just introduce myself. Some of you may not know who I am, and not that it really matters, but I am the founder of Team Brolin. I'm the author of the Designated Motivator and the Designated Motivator for Accounting Professionals because I believe my passion is helping my fellow accounting practitioners just get better, right? And improve their practice so that they're more profitable. And for me, it's like, I want to do less and make more. And so I just thought that it was great to pass on the information to as many people who would listen. I do have my own accounting practice, Powerful Accounting Inc. We do some write-up work. We try to stay away from it, but it's just inevitable that it is part of what we do, whether we're doing tax returns. I do IRS representation, which I love. I deal with fraud cases. I just got a new one that came on, which I get real excited about. The IRS representation is one of the reasons why I got so excited about Bookkeep, because a lot of times we're having to do accounting reconstruction, and we're going to talk about that in a little bit. But I'm really excited to just be presenting this with Jason today. So, we just got done, with 2021 just ended, right? And so we've got to start getting books wrapped up. And so I looked at this and said, listen, in my firm, we have this conversation on the regular, on a very ongoing basis. We are reassessing our success with regard to whatever write-up bookkeeping services that we do for our clients, which sometimes it's ongoing, right, Jason? And sometimes it's a one-time shot, the end of the year. They used to call it the shoebox, but really it's now, what are the technology solutions they used last year that we know they didn't tell us about, but thank goodness the bank tells us what's going on. And we want zero data entry, right, Jason, at the end of the day, period.
Yep. Unfortunately, though, the way the world's moving, the bank's not going to have all the information anymore with some of these new debit cards. But we're hoping to be able to solve that for you.
Yeah. And so really the zero data entry, and I like to talk about this because Nicole on my team, I'm like, Nicole, the minute that you find, as we're bringing these once a year people in, smaller businesses, obviously, as they're coming in, we're like, okay, what do we have to do? And the minute this finger aims at the keyboard, like immediately it goes, oh, stop. Why am I using my keyboard? Right?
Yeah.
So that's the end goal, because we can charge the same money if we implement tools that are good for us. It's just like a guy who's doing a roof. So a contractor who's up there, whether they're hand nailing the roof or they're using the gun, one or the other, they're still charging the same amount. Why can't we do the same thing? Right?
Yeah. And it's about having a mindset of continuous improvement, which isn't natural for everyone to think about. Why am I doing? When I worked on the trading desk, that's where I started with my automation. Was every day I had to pull all these numbers into a spreadsheet to distribute to all the traders. So every day I would spend 5 minutes figuring out, okay, let me write something so that I can suck that information down and download it, so I don't have to go grab it and type it in. And then I would do a little more pieces of it. And that's, as an accountant, bookkeeper, CPA, you should always be thinking about, how can I make this process better with 5 minutes that might save me hours over the next, couple months or per month, going forward.
Yeah. And I think honestly, part of it too, we'll move on in a minute, but I think that at the end of the day, it makes our industry better. It makes it helps the clients have a level of trust when they know that, oh, you know what, we did it that way before and we have a new bookkeeper, so they're going to do it differently. And then this one's going to do it this way. And it's like, whoa, just automate the darn thing and you don't have to think about it. So that's the whole goal of what we're talking about today anyway. So as we look at this, knowing automation is going to eliminate that overwork, overwhelm, because if you don't have to think about how those gross sales are coming in and are the expenses being captured, is all of this happening, we feel like we still have to, Dawn Brolin has to enter it because it's the only way it's going to be entered correctly, because I'm the only one who knows how to do this. And that's like ridiculous. So let's talk about that year-end bookkeeping client that comes in. So historically, we know this once a year bookkeeping client comes in and we bang, 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 we hit the keys and we get it all wrapped up. What if, and here's the dream, what if you were able to set up a system for them in their software and that integrates with their accounting, so that next year you don't even have to think, it's not even anything you're dealing with. When you show up to the data file, right, at the end of the year, well, you know what, maybe now you can have conversation throughout the year. Let's get crazy. But having that automated, it's a set it and forget it. And we'll mention that later, but the year-end bookkeeping, and that's why this timing of this webinar is so good, because we just went through January. Now, our focus in January is what? 1099s and W-2s. Well, my whole thing is, why are we doing W-2s? I mean, I'm using ADP full service payroll. Why am I don't deal with W-2s anymore. I'm all done. So why are we not considering our bookkeeping in the same way? Why are we not thinking of it in that same way? Right, Jason? And you talk to people all the time.
Yeah. And something I would add to this is, if you have a retail e-commerce restaurant, everything's e-commerce, really. Everything's digital. You were just talking about Venmo. Clients are doing digital payments. They're selling on so many different sales channels, no matter what their business is. You need to be reconciling daily to the sales to make sure you're getting paid. Depending on the front end sales systems you use, we've seen instances where the users of an e-commerce platform didn't properly close out orders. Even though the e-commerce platform is showing them income in their reports, they didn't get paid for it because they didn't capture the credit card transactions, because they did it at some manual orders. And those things happen, and especially even just setting up your e-commerce platforms, you might not have set things up properly to make sure you're getting your payments from multiple payment systems across those sales channels. So it's really important to be reconciling at the very least every month of the deposits to the sales.
And that's something that if you're doing that manually, I'm sure you're charging quite a bit of money for it. And people appear to be willing to pay for it for now. And that just may be something in the future. And I love that conversation about, did they get paid? Did they not get paid? And because Bookkeep, yes, posts the sales transactions, but bigger than that, it reconciles the payment side. And that's where I think that manual system is so antiquated that it's got to be automated.
And I would say it's not even possible. Some clients, I mean, if they're on so many different channels, you can't keep track of all of it.
Absolutely. And so certainly for me, and I'm all of the compliance girl, like I'm all about being compliant. Issues with sales tax returns. So people are filing sales tax returns in most cases. If they don't have someone who's really paying attention to that gross sale number coming from, and we'll just use a simple example. We got Square. So somebody comes in, and usually if they're using QBO, or I don't know a lot about Xero, but definitely with QBO, they're taking the bank feed and they're booking the revenue right off the bank feed. The bank feed is not taking into consideration gross number and then the expenses associated with that. So sales tax returns, guess what, are wrong.
Yes, and sales tax and loans, Square has loans, and now Square has savings. So they're taking savings out if you set that, and loans. So which we can't handle the savings because they didn't give us an API, but we do handle the loans. We will eventually.
And that's obviously a huge problem. And especially like you said, with your larger retailers, the larger clients who are dealing with big numbers. I had an IRS case. And of course, I always bring up the IRS cases because they're fun. They really are. For me, not for the client, but they're super fun for me. And this client had a bookkeeper who was doing everything manually. It's not an example necessarily of Square with the loans with Square, but it's still calling out to the fact that this bookkeeper was booking $400,000 loans as income. And so it ended up being this big, and they had like 22 entities. So it's kind of, what are you going to do? But it was a criminal audit. These guys were going to go to jail because of underreporting and all the rest of this. And I said, as a matter of fact, now they didn't underreport, they overreported because, and I was able to prove it all. But that example where people are booking loan as revenue because they are just pulling in a bank feed. And I will tell you, there are people out there today who are still doing that.
I just saw one this week of a multi-million-dollar business that is booking the deposits from Stripe as income, and it's completely wrong.
So hello.
Yeah, I didn't know it happened at that level as well, but it seems to be so common. I actually even did a video, deposits are not income. It seems to be a very common understanding. And I believe that one of the reasons I believe that happens is often that the accountant bookkeeper is just like he won't give me access to the proper system, so I don't know what else to do. And I totally get that. But with our system, you can make it easy to connect and get the proper data for those deposits.
Well, and the key is it's that one-time setup. And once you've got it, it just runs on its own, which is key. And just, for those of you who don't know, because some people don't know this story. I know when I first started doing accounting work, I didn't really know this story, but the sales tax returns, let's just say they're monthly filers, you take those monthly filed sales tax returns and you add them up. That gives you a gross number. That gross number should match line one on let's say a partnership, whatever it may be. But that's line one, Schedule C, all those two numbers should match. Now, I can guarantee you that those of you that are here on the call and listening, if you've never checked that before, check it. That's something, that's a due diligence matter. If you're a tax preparer, or even if you're not a tax preparer, you want to talk about and listen, I'm going to tell you something right now. The bookkeepers are the most important people. They just are. Okay.
Mhm.
Because without that stuff being right, then we've got problems moving up the chain to the tax return. But, I just find that even at that level, as a bookkeeper, to be able to say, you know what, once here are your sales tax returns, I give them to the practitioner, maybe you don't give them to the preparer. Again, depends. But you as the bookkeeper can say, listen, I looked over your sales tax returns and I'm looking over your tax return and those numbers don't match. Just understand that if you get audited for sales tax, especially, oh my Lord, nothing worse than a sales tax audit. But if those numbers don't match and IRS comes in and asks for copies of those sales tax returns to justify that gross income on the tax return, which they do, and they ask that question and they don't match, this has just opened up into a huge can of worms. So best practice as a practitioner is a great way for you to cover the butt of your client at the end of the day, right?
And also remember the deposits are cash based, which means your sales tax is always, if you're in retail, e-commerce, restaurant, your sales tax is accrual based. It's based on what you sold that month, and that's what you have to pay. And if you're booking deposits, those are days later. If you think about Christmas and you're using Amazon Seller, you get your deposit for your Christmas sales in January. So you can't be doing it that way.
Exactly. So we've got to, again, reducing that audit potential. That's what we're looking to try to do here. It is part of the equation when you're deciding on what tools you're going to use. And if that's not part of your equation, I hope after today it will be, because it's really critical.
And also you want to be able to get to the last thing I'll say is, ideally, you want to know what your sales were on the day they happened. So when you look back, even if you're using a whole bunch of different tools, when you look back, you can say, okay, what did I do on the day before Thanksgiving? Well, if you're booking daily entries, you know that. If you're booking the deposits when they hit, whenever that is, whatever system, you don't know what you did the day before Thanksgiving.
Absolutely. So Emily's just going to launch a polling question. No, there aren't any, there's no CPE for this webinar, but you're here because you love the information. I already feel confident about that. So how are you feeling? And of course, we're just getting into it, right? I've already filed a good handful of returns because I'm just ready to go. And part of the reason is because of the tools that we're using to get books ready to be able to move on and do a tax return. And that's something that we thrive on and we're striving for. So are you thriving, surviving, struggling, or you're in crisis? And there's no wrong answer here, obviously. But we just want to know who we're talking to. Like, where are your struggles? And it's not just maybe with Bookkeep, with automation. There may be other things that you're struggling in. And that's, we just want to know who we're talking to. So we'll just give this another 30 seconds. Like I said, you're not going to 10 seconds. You're not going to get CPE, but please just answer it so we know who we're talking to. So Emily, you can close it down in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So close her down. Let's see how people are feeling. Okay, we got some strugglers, we got some survivors, and we got some who are thrivers, and I love that. No one's in crisis. That makes me feel good that everyone's okay. That's the most important thing. So good. Thank you so much you can close that down. Thanks for answering that question. So, and obviously there's numerous reasons why people are struggling right now, and hopefully, I always like to give as many nuggets as I can to help anybody who is in any capacity struggling in any way. So what we're going to talk about, again, as we continue through this webinar, is how to implement automated bookkeeping and reconciliation for the benefit of your team, obviously, and your clients. But, the way I see it is, if my team is happy, my clients will be happy. And if my clients are happy, my team's happy. It's like this reciprocal relationship that we have. And then we're going to talk about how using QuickBooks, and specifically QuickBooks Online, and having those integrations for that seamless data sync, saving us hours and saving us human error. And really, for me, the human error is what makes me the craziest, because if I look at a set of books and I drill into that income line and I'm seeing just net numbers, I'm not comfortable with the return, and I'm just not going to move forward with it because it's got to be correct. So the goal is to save time, make money, really, and just have that workflow so we don't have those struggles that we've been talking about. So here we go, Jason. Which do you like better? This is a great question. Money or manual bookkeeping? I choose money.
Yeah.
Right?
I love this slide. Yeah.
Because really, at the end of the day, using Bookkeep, and I can say this because I've got clients on it, and whenever these annual clients come in and I see they're using Square because they've decided they want to get paid faster. Here's a good conversation right here, Jason.
Mhm.
We as practitioners have, and I think that this is true about attorneys and accountants, we don't want to pay a fee for anything. Nothing. We are the cheapest. I'm gonna say it's not cheap. We're frugal people. We want to, we work hard for our money. We want to keep it. I totally get that. And our clients historically have been the same way. But if you look now, I would say within the last year, 2-3 years tops, the attitude towards paying a fee to get paid has decreased. And the reason for that is because you're getting your money faster. And what's,
Mhm.
you know, $22 or what's $7.65 on $100 payment or a $200 payment make when I know I can get that money. So being able to have that automation for the clients, because
Right.
they want to get paid these other ways. Would you agree?
Oh, yeah, totally. And I mean, even if they didn't want to use the old ways of paying, because of COVID, everything's gone digital payments. Cash is, some of our restaurant clients, they don't use cash anymore, really, which is a great thing. So it's harder for like, well, why is this $1,000 that the register said you collected? Where did that go? So those problems go away with automated and digital payments.
Yes, absolutely. So my whole message is I've got to be prepared to maneuver that decision of my client that they're going to use Square, they're going to use PayPal, they're going to use, you know, whatever it may be. And I don't want to have to be manually dealing with that.
Right.
And so, you know, and really at the end of the day, the client doesn't want to pay for it. Right. So
And
go ahead.
And I would take it even a step further. I mean, I talk to a lot of CPAs and accountants, and you're not going to really have a choice. You cannot do the books anymore in the future. But the good news is if you learn how to use automation, there's not a lot of good accountants. I mean, we always get asked too by direct clients, you know, who's a good bookkeeper, who's a good client, you know, for our company, because it's very hard, as you know, I'm sure people on this call turn away clients. But if you can automate, you can take more clients, and the very sophisticated accountants who can handle all these digital and automated payments through automation are going to be able to build a big practice, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And that leads us to the next question. Again, these are for us to direct the conversation, nothing more. But Emily, go ahead and launch that. So I say, you know, this is a hard question because how many hours do you spend manually entering data? Now, it's a hard question because we could, you know, we're like, is it like 4 to 7 hours? Because we're so particular as accountants, like, well, what do you mean by that? We're just trying to say in general, do you feel, a lot of it's a feeling, do you feel like you're entering like all your transactions? I'm not talking about QBO bank feeds. I'm not talking about that. We know that that's coming in and that's all good, but we're still in a way with, even with the bank feed, we're still dealing with data at that level where when automated transactions come in, we're maybe matching instead of deciding where the transaction is going to go. And yes, we have rules and all those other things, but do you feel like you're manually entering data, managing data, however it may be? Some, not many, none. Some of you may be just, I'm fully automated, Brolin. Like I got this nailed down. I'm just here because I like you. I get it. But, you know, so anyway, just simple polling question. I'm going to just count it down 5 seconds. 4, 3, 2, 1. Emily, go ahead and launch the results. So we have a couple people, and I bet I could guess who they were in this group. We have a decent amount that do some and many and not many. So that's great. What a great variety of people. You know, I know that something, and you said this about not having a choice. Okay. So not having that choice as we move forward is absolutely a good point. And I can tell you that 2 of the people on this call that I know very well, Stacy and Bryce, we've been talking about this for many, many years. It's not a new conversation, but here's what's different, I think. The clients are now determining what we do and what we don't do, where 5, 6, 7 years ago, we were making the choice that we wanted to automate because we wanted it better for us. Well, guess what? It's kind of the tail has turned in that the clients are making that decision. Right?
Yeah.
So we're using Bookkeep again to just, it was like a missing puzzle, and I really can't stand it when I can't find that last puzzle piece, and the cat probably got it and it's now underneath the cabinet somewhere, whatever. But, you know, automating the bookkeeping for us has been a huge time saver, and having that zero data entry. And I wasn't kidding. I tell Nicole, at any moment that you start clicking on the keyboard, we have to have a conversation. Now, there are things like, we have some real estate companies who are buying properties and we're booking HUDs. There's not really an automated process to book the HUDs that I know of. So it's not like we don't have those exceptions to the rule. But for those that we do have control over, the message is, we're showing you an application here today that will give you that automation. So it's like, there's no excuse for these types of transactions to automate them.
And to be clear, and we're going to show it in the next slide. So what we're talking about is heavy transaction volume. And it doesn't even have to be heavy. Even if it's 10 to 30 transactions a day, you need to be doing summaries in your front end tools to make sure that matches up to your your payment deposits. And while there's 50 apps in the QuickBooks App Store that'll post every transaction from Square or Shopify or every single order to QuickBooks, you do not want to, everyone here knows that you don't want to use those. I don't have to even say it. It makes a mess of your QuickBooks. So you want proper accrual accounting entries that are created from these front end tools into your books. That's really the type of it. And those are the entries, of course, that we create.
Absolutely, for sure. So, and it's certainly about saving hours of time. And I've had many webinars where I've just kind of told people, I actually calculated the amount of time that I can save last tax season, the amount of hours, and it came to, I think it was like $36,000 of time that we saved because we didn't have to do these outsourced or whatever, these manual transactions or these manual processes. And this app has now just made it even better, which makes me excited because I know I'll look back in May and look at my 4-month P&L. Last year it was $360,000 between 3 people. It's going to be at least $360 again, but I will have paid my team less money because they're spending less time doing the work. So I'm all excited about it personally. But really, here's why. It's a set it and forget it. Like I said before, we have those clients who come in once a year and they come in and we do that year, and we know that year is going to come around again because we set up Bookkeep for these retail clients. And we've got, it was not even just retail. We have a contractor and we do work for him throughout the year, as often as we can. Well, he all of a sudden in the fourth quarter set up PayPal, and he set up PayPal, and we're like, and Amazon, both. And we're like, wait a minute. Okay. And we were so excited. We were like, oh, pick me. We can set up Bookkeep.
Right.
And so, we realized that now 2022 bookkeeping is going to be even easier than it was in 21. And that's the set it and forget it. I'm calling it a philosophy now. Used to be this awesome chicken machine. And my husband and I had one. We loved that thing, set it and forget it. But now I can do it with accounting. I'm all in because I want to go to the softball field. I don't want to be in here. I want to be out of here. But yeah, so you like that? Set it and forget it. Did you? I love the chicken.
I've always said, I say the same thing. I say set it and forget it, but I didn't remember where it was from. But yes, it's from one of those TV commercials.
And it just makes total sense with this solution for sure, with Bookkeep. So here are some things, and we will get to see the various apps that we've been talking about in the next slide, and then certainly what the journal entry looks like. Jason, you're going to talk us through that. I called it a chicken oven. I know, Rachel, right? It's a chicken oven, a rotisserie. So anyway, so what are the best practices? This is something that most of you know, some of you may not, but what are you looking for in an app provider? So certainly we want somebody that's a true partner. And what I mean by that, it's not just, okay, we set them up, all right, bye, have a great day. One of the key pieces to what Bookkeep can allow for you is, I love this, is a chat feature. Now, not all apps have a chat help feature. And do you know what that does to me? Makes me a crazy freaking person. It makes me a crazy person because what it means, and I believe, and with you guys, it's not just chat, it's live chat. It's not, put something in the chat, it goes into your email and now goes to someone. Now you're following an email chat. That is, so if any app providers are listening to this someday, don't do that because it makes your practitioners nuts. Okay. So what you have is a solution where you can get in there, and Anish is usually in there. If you want to just say, hey, Anish, I need you because he's awesome. he can bring in those historical transactions, or you're like, hey, listen, I'm reconciling the account and I see that this deposit is missing. Can you pull that day of sales back in again? Something happened, could have been deleted by the client, who knows? But you guys are there, and that's critical. And the second thing that I would say, and then I'm gonna let you jump in, Jason, and that's what I mean by support. Technology is constantly changing, and it constantly has to be modified. And with that, not only the modification, but the foresight, being able to forecast and look into the future of what we need to do next. Jason, you guys are always looking, what are we going to connect to next? What are we going to solve for next? If you have an app that you're choosing and they're just stagnant in their solution, that's probably not the best choice, right? Yeah. So go ahead and talk to us a little bit about that.
Well, certainly in this space, and there's not a lot of people that do what we do, not a lot of apps that do what we do for accountants and bookkeepers. So it's kind of greenfield, where we want to be able to create these daily sales summaries and the payment deposit entries for every single system that's out there. My goal is that whatever they're using, and Don wants us to do Venmo, and I just looked at it, and there is an API, and we'll put that on our list and try and get that built. As long as there's an API, and as long as we have an accountant to work with to make so that we have a beta test account, we can get it built pretty quickly. And we hope to add a whole bunch more during the rest of this year. But in the space that we're in, we feel like we're on the same team as you, which is, wait a second, why am I not getting deposits from Square and Shopify anymore? Oh, well, because your client enabled a debit card and now they stop making deposits. So now we all are like, how are we going to get this data? Because right now it's completely manual, and I wish we could get it ourselves, but we will. And we've been talking to them, but by working with us, I can tell you that we've talked to Square product team, we've talked to Shopify product team. They understand, and when I approach them, I'm like, listen, the entire accounting community is going to be very upset because they can't get access to these debit card transactions. So we want to be there and help you, do this. And so we're communicating that to these apps, a lot of these apps, that there's accountants out there that need access to this data in an automated fashion. So we look at this as being a partner and maybe being your back office, your automation back office. It's not just an app, that is perfect and does what it does. We're trying to help at the same time figure out how to capture this data in an automated way if it's not available, and work to solve these problems for accountants and bookkeepers in this country, and all over the world. But so we definitely look at it as being a partnership.
Absolutely. Yeah. And so that was one of the things we were chit-chatting about Venmo earlier. And I have a rental property. And so because I'm ethical, I didn't set up a personal Venmo account. I set up a business Venmo account because it is a business. And so there are those fees associated with that. And so I'm excited. I'm going to be the test case, just so everyone knows. I'm going to be it, to make sure we get that right, because clients are going to set up for that. And Venmo, listen, and here we are, we're in a transition. Venmo is in a transition right now. They've had the personal account. People love it. I pay for my snow plower. I do all this, whatever. And so look at everybody's volunteering to be part of this process, Jason. I love that. Rachel's all in, sister. So we're looking at Venmo's process, and we're seeing that they're going from this. They have the personal account. They'll always have the personal account. People got to split checks for, wherever they are. Penny Breslin's one of the funniest people in the world. So, but now they're moving to the business accounts, and Venmo's going to catch those. And I have a friend, not going to lie, I have a friend who has many more rental properties than I do, and he uses his personal Venmo, and he's doing anywhere from $30,000 to $40,000 a month in rental income through his personal Venmo. They will catch him, and he will have to go transition to a business Venmo account.
Yeah, and in general, we can build Venmo, and I've seen that it looks like it's not that complicated to build Venmo, and we also have a client too who does similar things. The fees on Venmo are not that much. It looks like 1.9% and 10 cents. It's really not bad. But in general, we're always going to work to capture from business systems and enable that for clients. But yeah, Venmo is another one, and there's 230 of them on our list that we want to add. If you have any that you want us to do, just reach out and let us know. And we'll add you to our beta test list.
And that's how easy it is, people. Again, That's why when you're looking for an app provider, are they open-minded? Are they willing to work with you? Okay, we've hammered that. This is what everyone wants to see. This is what everyone wants to talk about, right? What are the apps that you work with? We've mentioned a few. So here they are, right? And so who was your first one though? Tell me who the first one was. I'm curious.
Honestly, I can't remember. It was definitely Square. It was Square because I switched to Square. I built ShopKeep. I used ShopKeep in my wine store, and then I switched in ShopKeep. Long story, but never built a proper API, even though I wanted it. So I switched to Square for my wine store so that I could build this for Square. And I actually wrote the code for that original one with Bhupendra, who's one of our engineers. And then we did Shopify. And then we set up a platform so that we could build this in a way that the platform works no matter what the data is. So what we do is we write code to go grab the data from these tools into our proprietary format. And then from our format, it gets posted to QuickBooks Zero. We have NetSuite and Intact as well. So we basically have built this platform. That's why I mean, we could do Venmo, assuming we have the resources, as long as it gets in the planning of time. It would only take us a week or two to build. It's very quick because once the data gets into our platform, everything works. So, and that's why I think we can add hundreds of these over the next year or two. But that was the first ones we did, was because they have APIs. Shopify and Square have great APIs. We can get very accurate data. Not to say the same for the rest of them here, but we're working on it. We're working on them, trying to get them to give us better data.
Right. So of course I recognize the DoorDash, the GrubHub, the Amazon, of course, Stripe, we know Woocommerce, we know that. So there's a couple on here I don't really know what they are. So if you can name them off.
I'm not sure how DoorDash got on here. We don't have DoorDash yet. We have a GrubHub. We do have a GrubHub connector, and we have Amazon Seller. We do have Stripe, the Squarespace, Woocommerce. Trees we have a bunch of cannabis point of sale systems. Some of the major ones, Greenbits, I think this is at GB, and Trees and Meadow. And at the very top is Stronghold Pay, which is a payment provider for cannabis. We have ShopKeep there. We have Lightspeed now, Etsy. I mean, most of the big ones we have, but there's still a lot more to add, because even if that one that we don't have, it still can be a nightmare for you to have to do manually. And trust me, I've seen some of these reports. I mean, one of the things that we end up doing, if anyone's seen the Etsy, I think it was Etsy, what they can call a summary report is, it's nothing of the sort. It's like, it's maybe a transfer report, but I mean, most of these tools, everyone here probably knows without really understanding the problem, because they don't think about the app developer side. None of these icons here think about accountants. It's just, how do I create orders, faster orders, better orders, more orders, because my customers want to sell stuff. As far as the reporting goes, who cares? Like, it doesn't matter. I don't care about the accountants. They don't buy my software. So that's kind of what we're dealing with when we go to talk to some of these providers and say, we need this data for the accountants who have to, who are having to do this manually. And they're often like, well, they're not our customers. We don't care. But the more we can work together, and it really comes down to accountants and bookkeepers actually saying, listen, don't think you can't complain, just complain. I think a lot of people don't feel like they can complain because they're not directly connected to the tool that was purchased or is being used. So, that's really, and I'm working on some ways that we can sort of get together as a group and go approach someone like a DoorDash or a GrubHub and say, hey, or the great one is Uber Eats. Hey, Uber Eats, you built this amazing summary report. You think it's so great. Well, the only way to get it is you send us an email that says your summary report's ready. I have to click through the email, log in, wait for my text, and then press another button to download it. That cannot be automated. Send it to us in an email as an attachment. I can automate that. We can automate that for you. But they don't always think that way because they just don't realize it. So we have to make ourselves known and email customer care and say, this sucks, we need access. Eventually they'll get the word, but we're working on that.
I think Penny makes a really good point about app integrators, right? They don't have accountants look at it to see if it works properly all the time. And that's the truth, because here's a lot of times I find as I'm integrating and saying, okay, let me just do a direct connect from this app into QBO. They're not getting the accounting right. So that's where with Bookkeep, you're getting the accounting right, regardless of what report you may be able to generate, or even direct integration is not always the right answer at the end of the day.
Yeah, direct integration from some of these apps is not going to be right because they'll throw transactions because transactions are easy. They don't have to balance. They don't have to reconcile. So we do proper accrual entries that have to balance and have to match up because we understand accounting. And you should know these app developers don't understand accounting. They transactions, they understand data, customer name, all the SKU items. But in terms of rolling that up into a proper summary report, it's very rare to see the summary reports that you get from Square and Shopify. They're very well done. The Square report always balances. The top of that report, I'm sure everyone here has seen it, matches the payments at the bottom. It balances. Sometimes it's off by a few pennies, but pretty much always balances. We throw that into discounts. But Shopify's report is almost always correct, but Shopify gives you so many options to screw up an order. So if you see on the upper right-hand corner, the total payments don't match the total income plus gift cards at the bottom, it is because someone screwed up an order. Our system will capture that into a bucket and they'll alert you to it. And figuring out what went wrong is a harder problem, but often you don't get reports that are nicely formatted like that in these systems. Shopkeep had a very nice summary report, actually, because I built it 10 years ago. But a lot of these tools, and that's what I mean with Squarespace. I think Etsy is another one. You just get a download of orders. So you have to build your pivot table or just do a roll up by payment type or however you want to do it. And anyway, we handle all of that for you.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, obviously, as we've been talking about this, and we're gonna get into more of the accounting in a minute, but having that, this is one of the other things. Onboarding onto a new app. Let's talk about that for a minute. Onboarding onto a new app can be brutal. So people will say, well, it's tax season, I'm doing books at the end. This is actually one app, if you've ever found one before, that you can actually implement now and get immediate results. Because it's really just about the connection. How do you want it to post in QuickBooks? Do you want to attach it to your existing chart of accounts? Or in my opinion, and this is how I do it, create the new accounts. Have it be, Square sales, and then you've got the expenses or the tips that have been paid, or you've got all of those categories onto the chart of accounts, so that there's this integration that I never have to think about. I know the accounts are right. I know it's posting right. So you can actually onboard this. It's not even really onboarding. You're just connecting, done. And not only that, you guys can bring in historical transactions. Let's talk about that for a minute.
Yeah, we do a lot. A lot of people sign up at the beginning or January and tell us they need to run history back, for last year or 2 years. So we do that. And it is pretty fast. The onboarding is not where I want it to be because we're trying, if you're using Shopify, it might be a little more complicated, just to know, because a lot of clients pull orders through Shopify using multiple different apps. And I was just looking at one today. It's pulling in, I think it's the Amazon seller orders, but whatever app they're using is not identifying that it's coming from Amazon as a sales channel, and it's not identifying the payments as Amazon. So they're falling through holes because they didn't properly post data into Shopify. We can exclude that. So we can basically exclude those orders, but sometimes that's a little harder to understand how to do that. But just reach out and we'll do it for you until we can. Sometimes, a lot of times with Shopify, we're dealing with bad data that comes from other apps, and that's where it gets a little complicated, but we can always help.
Yeah, and that's in the retroactive transactions piece to me is, as I mentioned a little bit earlier, about audits. So somebody comes to me and we have to recreate their books. Maybe it's a civil audit, but it's pretty heavy what they're asking for. We know that and civil audits can go criminal at any moment. That's a thing that as a practitioner, if you ever dealt with that, which some of you don't and some of you don't care, but for those of you who may be saying, hey, I want to get into that, but what I want to do is I want to do the reconstruction of the books. I don't want to deal with the IRS. I don't want to, even as CPAs, some CPAs don't want to do that, which is totally fine. So if that's the case, but you want to be the one who handles that reconstruction, in the event of it being a retailer, here's a way to be able to have absolute transparency for the auditor, right? Because it's all about making them happy. We have full transparency because it's like, here, listen, we've imported these are gross sales. Here are the costs, blah, blah, blah. They match up with the reports that we get, whatever the case may be. but you're a hero when it comes to the reconstruction because you're able to say, you know what, I can reconcile sales here. Give me, I don't know, 24 hours. If you were doing that manually, that would take you 24 days. So that's what we're talking about. So if we're even looking at reconstructing books from 2 years ago, somebody didn't do their tax return and they're using Amazon, for instance. Those are the things I want to make sure that you're thinking about. It's not just about today forward, but it's also the retroactive. And that's, again, what I think has been a game changer for us, for sure. So
yeah, and getting,
yeah,
because getting access, if you have to reconstruct, you're going to go to their bank account, you'll see the Amazon deposits, but then it's like, how do I got to get access to Amazon. With our tool, you could request the owner connect system with a link, and then the data will come through into the books with all the fees and everything that Amazon took, because Amazon takes a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep, absolutely. So this is where it's exciting. This is what people want to see. Walk us through what this looks like here. And I know the slide might be a little bit small. Just, put your reading glasses on, people.
Well, I mean, this is a square report here, and this is a very simple view, but basically in Square, our summary, our journal entries are proper summary, like what Square does on the daily basis. So what you see here is, gross sales is matching. And by the way, if you wanted to break it down by items and service charge, we do have a setting that allows you to do that. But here it's just matching up the gross sales, and sales tax and everything matches, and tips come in. So Square has a really great summary. We still actually recalculate ourselves. So we don't there's no API that says, here, pull the summary for that day. We actually pull all the orders and we calculate our own summaries using proper math and proper accounting math and accounting methods to match that summary there. And Square is generally very accurate. I should say sometimes Shopify doesn't do it right. Shopify sometimes considers orders income when they weren't paid. We won't do that. So there's sometimes differences there. It's usually a wash between, up, down between days. But we basically, follow proper accounting methodology, and generally it usually matches. So we post these summaries, and then you'll notice here where it says Square Bank, which is the account, that is your Square balance. So that 2,609 on line 5, that is your Square balance. And we call all of these systems have a balance. So you have a balance in Square, you have a balance in Shopify, you have a balance in Stripe, you have an Etsy balance, and Amazon balance. These are balances. They have an opening balance, they have a current balance. So all these sales go against that balance. And then when Square transfers money to your checking account, we also post an entry that transfers it from the Square balance in your QuickBooks to the bank account balance. And that's how you need to think about it. I've recently changed how I talk about this. I don't say clearing accounts anymore. It's not a clearing account, and it's confusing to people, I think, when you talk about clearing accounts, and you can correct me if you think this is wrong, but I've been saying clearing accounts a lot and people get confused. When you think about Square holds a balance, that balance needs to equal the balance in QuickBooks. Shopify holds a balance. It must equal your balance in QuickBooks. Those need to stay in sync. And that's what our product does for you. And it's going to get worse when those balances become the same balances that they use their debit cards on. And Square has, as we talked about earlier, Square has a savings account balance that we currently can't keep in sync for you, but hopefully they'll give us an API so that we can do that. Customers are, a lot of these payment software tools are trying to become your bank now. So you have to manage these balances, because it's not just a bank account balance anymore. It's a Square balance, a Shopify, and Etsy, and Amazon seller balance. You've got 2 Stripe balances in Canadian and US, and we help keep those in sync for you.
And that's critical, listen, for tax returns. And there may be people on here that do prepare tax returns and some that maybe don't prepare tax returns. But I can tell you, as a tax preparer, when I'm going through and I'm saying, okay, I've got a partnership, or I've got an S Corp or a C corporation, because Schedule C's, who cares? You don't even put the balance sheet on the tax return, right? That's like my biggest pet peeve. Like, that makes me crazy, that the fact that we don't really have to put in a balance sheet. So who knows if it really ever ties out, FYI. But when it comes to those real business returns, knowing that cash balance is correct and representative. And do you know what, not only just there, but in financial statements, as somebody, I've got a client right now who's selling their business. And there's, they don't, this isn't just saying, what if they did have Square, right? What if they did have those balances that you're talking about, and we're not reflecting those on the financials?
Yeah.
Then we're not fairly representing the true position of the business, which is unfair to my client who has this, could have $10,000 sitting in a Square account and we don't know about it. So due diligence, people.
Exactly. And another example of that, and some of the competitors to us do only post entries when you get a deposit. Whereas we, like I said, we keep your balances in sync on a daily basis. So if you think of that example I said with Amazon Seller, if you're on Amazon Seller, the bulk of your sales are going to be leading up to Christmas. That deposit doesn't hit till January. If you're using Bookkeep, the end of day, January 31st balance at Amazon will match up to, will actually end up in your books. Whereas with other systems, you might not see it until the deposit hits, which is after the year is closed.
Absolutely. Yep. So again, we're doing real-time accounting without having to do anything. I'm really into that part. That's probably one of my favorites, is not doing anything. But again, so why Bookkeep is the best, and working with Bookkeep, obviously you're getting, support from a growing list of accounting app integrations. Now, we'll tell you right now, as we're sitting here today in this webinar, we got people who want Zelle, they want PayPal, they want Vagaro, they want Mindbody. So what's great is that Jason's ready to go, right, Jason?
We have actually Mindbody, but I think we're not in their app store. We've had trouble getting approved in their app store. So anyway, so we're close with Mindbody. And PayPal, we have PayPal.
Yeah. So
our PayPal integration summarizes the fees for transactions that were handled on Shopify, at Squarespace, etc. We don't book those from PayPal, so we ignore those from PayPal, but we capture everything else that happens on PayPal. So it's actually a little bit simpler than using the PayPal Connect app. And I should say, if you do use Bookkeep with Shopify or Squarespace, you cannot use the PayPal Connect app. So you have to turn off, because it will duplicate those sales. And the PayPal Connect app does not let you ignore those orders basically that happen on other systems. So we do have PayPal.
Perfect. Of course, the unparalleled compliance. If you've obviously, since you've been listening to Jason is, has been a business owner in so many ways, but also understanding the accounting on the other side of it. And you've got people who at Bookkeep understand the accounting. And a lot of times there's apps that don't understand the accounting, and then they jack up the entries. And that's, again, what we said before about connecting a lot of apps. They're just thinking, oh, we've got this app we can connect, but they never even look at the other. What they'll say is, oh, that's QBO's fault.
Right.
And that's, oh, you have to talk to them about it. It's like, no, you're the one connecting with QBO, not vice versa. So this is on you, man. Right. Yeah. So, and you guys are just different in that way.
Yeah. And our head of product,
team,
our head of product is a CPA. We have 3 full-time bookkeeper accountants in-house that work on the client side, but they, our product team is able to work directly. In fact, we had an all hands this morning where we spent 20 minutes of our all hands where Marissa, who runs the client accounting services team, explained to the whole company, including all the engineers, this is what my day looks like. This is why you need to do this. And this is, so I don't think any other app developer has in-house accountants like we do. So, and we use that team to help inform how we need to be building or changing the product and just really to understand our customers better.
Yeah, absolutely. And then of course, obviously benchmarking data, right? So you're able to have that information at your fingertips in real time, which is what we've always talked about, and stop looking at historical, but be in real time. And then 2-factor authentication. Just one little tip for you all. When you are integrating, you want to at least have a client attentive to your text potentially, which we use Liscio, because I'm not giving out my cell phone number anymore, by the way. So we just use Liscio. We go through the app, we sending that code. So just know that if you don't have your client available and they're the ones who get the code to log in to say Square, you're going to get frustrated because you're not going to be able to finish what you started. So just make sure that they're available. That's a little bit of a tip, but 2-factor authentication is key, right? So, and we need that.
And we make it easy. You can, within our app, you can click on PayPal, for instance, and then type in your client's email, and we'll send a message and CC you that says, hey, client, Dawn is asking for you to connect PayPal. Please click here and connect your PayPal. And they won't have to log into our platform. They don't even have to know about Bookkeep. Often it's more confusing to them anyway. And they can just make the PayPal connection, and then you'll get an email that says PayPal is now connected.
Yes, absolutely. So here's a tip, and obviously you guys can read it, but yodel.io for SMS authentication syncs to her Slack channel so we can get codes whenever we need them. That's, you know what? I didn't know about that, Penny. I'm writing that down. I didn't know anything about that.
Yeah. I was just telling Dawn that we use a phone number within Google with our Google Gmail that works really well, but I'll have to look at that other one too for our team.
That's why I love webinars, because we got people that come here and know. And Penny, I don't want to say Penny deals in pot, but Penny has a lot of clients that are in the cannabis industry. I'm sure that she's paid attention to those apps that you were mentioning that you see.
Yeah, we have almost 5 point of sale systems in the cannabis space. So let us know, and we'll build connectors as needed.
Yes, absolutely. So obviously what we were saying is I love Penny. She's rip roaring funny. So obviously bookkeep.com, but listen, hey, we just want to launch this polling question. If you want Jason or someone on his team to reach out to you, yeah, I'm in. I already work with Bookkeep. I'd love to know for those of you who are already working with them. And if you're not interested, okay, that's all cool. Someday you will, because you'll have no choice. Your clients will come to you and you'll be like, oh, what was that webinar I listened to? Because I don't want to manually post any of this stuff for sure. But so if you want to learn about Bookkeep, leave it open for another 5 seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. We could close that. Cool. We're onward and upward. So just last thoughts at the end. I certainly thank you guys for attending. If otherwise, Jason and I would just talk to each other. But Jason, any last minute things you want to just throw out there?
No, I think we hit on everything. And again, just reach out. You can go to our website and you can just sign up and start using it and chat with us if you have any questions. And we do have, partner programs as well, which you can just ask for, information on when you chat with us for accountants, because we consider accountants and bookkeepers our partners. So yeah, just reach out. We're here.
Awesome. Thank you all, everybody. This is a great webinar. I hope you learned something. Listen, reassess your success and get yourself where you're not entering any data. Hello. Make money while you can go. I'll go play softball, coach softball. I'm not playing. God, imagine. Or go on my boat, whatever. So Jason and his team handles all that stuff and I can just chill. So thanks everybody for attending, and we'll see you at future webinars. Join the motivation movement. Let's go.
Thanks, Dawn.
Thanks everybody.